In this video, I'm going to show you how we changed over my Ace handset over from the Ace Arctis stock handset to this 3D printed Walther PDP. Now, any 3D printed files that work for Ace are applicable on this video. It does not have to be a Walther PDP, and you can find those files on Yegi and Thingiverse and similar websites. So, hope you'll enjoy this video and the process of how we swap this over. And I can't wait to use this in future Ace content. Once you actually 3D print your file or have someone else 3D print it for you, you're gonna have to shave down any imperfections as well as taking off the supports, which are just extra pieces when the print is actually made. Once those are shaved down, it should be much more comfortable in your hands. There shouldn't be anything sharp or could necessarily scratch you, and you should just give it a once over to make sure everything is good. As well as there could be additional files for the trigger, like in this case, so there's going to be some additional supports and other pieces you'll have to take off for files like that. Next up, after finishing off the print imperfections, is going to be adding the hot glue. So we're using a hot glue gun in this case just to fill up the hole in the barrel, because we're going to be adding some weight to the front part as well as the bottom grip, and we want to make sure that the lead BBs in this case stay in place. So we're filling this up. You can even double layer it if you have to. Technically, the 3D printed file could have just had this filled in from the start, but it didn't. So we're adding the hot glue here to make sure everything is nicely sealed up. Nothing's going to be loose. We're using a knife just to make sure it's nice and smooth at the end and fits in the hole perfectly. Once we've got that sealed, we're going to take a funnel, put it over the desired area. In this case, we're going to be putting it in the front, and this is a compact model. If you do go with a full-size Firearm model, you'll be able to actually fit more weight in the front, which is pretty awesome to do. You're going to fill that up with the lead BBs or whatever you want to use to add the weight, and then we're adding in additional hot glue to make sure everything is nicely sealed up. Same thing with the actual hand grip. We're going to add in our BBs, glue it up, and try to fit as much weight as possible to get the handset to feel as realistic as possible to the real thing. We're going to be moving on to the disassembly of our current Ace handset. So we're going to take some tools just to get the push pins out of the Ace Arctis model over here, but this could work for any particular Ace model that you get. So I don't even have a push bar set. We're actually using tiny screwdrivers to push these out. And there's one pin in the front area, and then there's one pin in the back that kind of holds everything together. Then we're just going to use some pliers, take those push pins out of there, and then we should be able to separate the two halves, which is basically the handset that holds all the weight and is your almost 3D printed model. And then we're also going to have our main component. This is the patented piece that comes from Ace at the top. So our old handset had some awesome weights in there. Ace really makes some high quality handsets. And then from here, you have your main control unit. This is basically the most important part that we need to get working. And as you can see, when we pull the trigger, it makes some buttons on your Ace controller move. Same thing for the mag release. And then we're just gonna be lining up the components and taking out the additional push pins from here. So we have one by the trigger. So we're just gonna take that out also with the pliers. And then from there, we're going to take out the last push pin, which is going to be inside the trigger mechanism. So we take out the trigger. As you can see, it's very delicate at this point. We have a couple of springs exposed, so you have to be careful about this. So we're going to put that to the side, and we're going to line up the trigger to our new trigger, which is a flat-facing trigger for the Walther PDP Pro model. And we're going to take out the last push pin just using a tiny screw head. And that is it. That is your complete disassembly of the Ace controller. Once you've got your pins put back and all of your components in the new trigger, you're going to be very careful about this part with the springs, because we have two exposed, one in the body and then one within the trigger mechanism itself. We're going to push everything in very delicately while keeping pressure on the trigger. We're going to take our final push bar and we're going to go ahead and put that back in. That way everything lines up perfectly. We're going to knock it in with some pressure, and then we'll be able to actually test our trigger and make sure it fits well and works well within the handset. But before we put the fire control unit back inside of the handset, we're actually going to put in our mag release, but we actually saw there are some fitment issues in this case. So we're going to use a Dremel just to kind of poke around in there, make sure the circumference and everything inside fits up, and that way we can actually fit our mag release mechanism back inside of there, because it is part of this install to make sure everything lines up well. There's also this additional component that we had on our trigger. I'm not sure why that was on the model, but we went ahead and chopped that off. It was unnecessary. I wouldn't suggest doing this while on the FCU, just in the future, unless you have very delicate hands, like in this case. But here you can see the trigger is fully actuating and working, and we can go ahead and place everything inside while putting in the push pins for the final reassembly. Disassembly. Now that we've got everything reassembled, you're going to want to test your trigger just one more time to make sure everything does work, especially now that the body pressure is pushing up against the FCU, just to make sure nothing is hitched up and everything works well. Then you're going to go ahead, put in your mag release, and then put in the final push pin in the back. You're going to have to line those up perfectly. That's a little bit tricky to do. I can't really explain it. You just gotta get your eyes onto it and realize that there's an angle on the mag release that has to line up perfectly with the other buttons and components. And then boom, you have everything working. This is now, you've fully switched over to your new handset. And your old one, you can go ahead and put into storage, clean it off, whatever you want to do with it. I actually ended up taking this whole thing apart and examining the difference between the stock Ace trigger as well as the new one, the flat-facing one that was 3D printed. And I noticed that there are some issues with the thickness of the 3D printed one. Now, this could be that they just added it for rigidity's sake, but I actually found that this was making the overall trigger weight heavier and slower, especially compared to an actual Walther PDP's Pro trigger, especially you're talking the flat face one. I mean, that's like 3.5 pounds, 4 pounds, if you ever gotten the chance to actually hold one and shoot one. So I definitely wanted to make this a little bit more similar to the real thing. And so I actually used the Dremel a little bit more just to slim it down, make it match up. And then I found that it shot way, way better and was more consistent as well. So that is something you're going to want to play with. You may want to even print out a couple of triggers just so in case something happens, because that's very delicate work. If you do mess it up, you're going to want to have a replacement, especially so you will be able to ace when you're not able to actually work on this. And then of course, you're going to want to test this again inside of your handset, because there is going to be pressure put on from the handset onto your trigger. You're going to want to make sure everything lines up and works perfectly. You're going to want to make sure that the reset is all the way forward. It's not getting stuck anywhere along the way. That has happened in the past. And so you're going to want to ensure everything works perfectly from the handset from the get-go, and all of your resets, your actual trigger weight is what you want. And I do again suggest you go ahead and print out a couple just to make sure it all works. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead, subscribe. That would really mean a lot. Any questions you have, go ahead, ask them below in the comment section. Don't forget to like the video as well. Would really, really appreciate it. Thanks guys. Hope to see you in the next one.